I think the big surprise in the April 5th Afghanistan elections is going to be continuity. I think there's a tendency among Afghans as well as Western analysts and policymakers to see this election as a great big turning point. It will be the first alternation of power, peaceful alternation of power. I think a lot of hopes, particularly Western hopes, are resting on an after Karzai Afghanistan following this election. I don't think that's what we're going to see. There's been a lot of focus on the outward manifestations of what looks like a presidential campaign, rallies, polling, things like that. But in Afghanistan, that's not what decides the election, partly because the international community has never really made good on its responsibility to ensure a minimum of credibility for Afghan elections. And so already in this electoral campaign, we've seen President Karzai controlling the two key electoral bodies. We've seen absolutely blatant use of the instruments of state power in favor of his chosen candidate, whose name is Zalmay Rasool. So what you're going to see is Karzai hands on the levers of power, even if indirectly. That means still a fragile and contested political order. And that means a government that doesn't really command the respect and trust of the population, which means a pretty fragile state that will be subject to a lot of different pressures, both externally and internally. So I think this election is going to be the opposite of a transition. If the international community has any real desire in seeing a more stable and functional Afghanistan after these elections, what it needs to do is begin to help midwife a multipolar consensus building process. This process should include members of the Taliban, it should include members of the Afghan government, but those shouldn't be the only parties, because both of those have very limited legitimacy among the Afghan population. Other stakeholders, nonviolent opposition members, community leaders need to be part of this kind of a process, and it needs to be a mediated consensus building process. And only that kind of a slow, patient, stubborn process, I think, holds out any hope at this stage of pulling Afghanistan out of the rut that it's been in for so many years.